Hello, Linda. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good, good. Well, we are live today, and we're talking about emotional intelligence.
Yes, and as we're coming into the holidays, knowing what emotional intelligence is and how to use your own
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
can be can be an awesome tool for the holidays this year, and just
Absolutely.
for
Absolutely.
any
So,
time.
why don't you start off by letting our audience know just exactly what we mean when we talk about emotional intelligence?
Emotional intelligence is, I don't have the definition in front of me, but really what it is how well you know yourself and understand what triggers your feelings, your emotions, where that comes from, so that you can better relate to people, but also learning how to recognize tendencies in other people so that you can interact.
Right.
Um, and it's not that one side or the other is giving in to the other person's way of communicating and being with people. It's to make things more seamless. I mean, you know what it's like when you have a conversation with someone and they're just not hearing you. And you know that
Yeah.
definition that, where they say, insanity is doing the same thing
Right.
the same way over and over and expecting a different result. That works in our emotional intelligence in our interactions as well.
Yep. Yep.
So if you're having Thanksgiving dinner with, grandma and mom and dad and everybody, and you just feel like nobody's hearing you or understanding you. Yeah, they're not. Well, maybe your grandparents and your parents are deaf, but saying it louder doesn't make it more understandable.
Right. 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 Yeah.
And
You know,
it's
and I think the biggest thing that a lot of people they try to overthink what it is too, and you have to think about um, to understand your own um, level or your own emotional intelligence. You have to also know what your triggers are,
right.
and
And you have to be on, and this takes honest reflection. You know,
yes, absolutely,
you
absolutely,
can't, you can't lie to yourself about what, say, I don't have any triggers or it's always everybody else's fault, because that's just not true.
yeah,
And even if the situation may not be your fault, how you respond to it is entirely your responsibility.
right, right,
And it's learning how to get control of how we respond and react.
yeah. So here's the biggest for our society out there now, right now, with well, we could go to the political side, but I want to talk a little bit. Those of you who may be struggling in a relationship. So,
Mhm.
I think 50% or 47% or something like I can't remember what the percentage are of marriages that end in divorce. And of course, you got to look at the other side. I think it's actually like 53 percent end in divorce, but the other 47% end in death. Anyway, but there's only two ways out, right? Anyway,
Right, right.
but what happens, especially when there's children involved, um, we have a tendency to let things trigger us,
Mhm.
or the former spouse, or to a point where it really hinders your growth in just about every area of your life, especially until you get to a point where you can recognize those triggers and the hooks that your former spouse is using to upset you. And a lot of times, I mean, there can be a maliciousness to it.
Well, it's maybe one of the reasons you got divorced is
Yep.
because somebody's pushing buttons all the time.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
That doesn't, you think that's going to stop? No.
Mhm.
But especially when you have kids and young kids, you have to remember, number one, the kids are not property, so you do not use them as a weapon or a tool.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Um, the damage that causes for those kids and their mental health is unforgivable.
It is.
It
It
really
is.
is. Because it's not the kids. The kids are not at fault. And you don't even necessarily need to say that one or both of the adults is at fault. I mean, there's lots of reasons to get a divorce, but
Right. Right.
someone who is emotionally aware and using their emotional intelligence properly would look at the situation as this is what we need to do for us to both move on.
Right.
And,
Right.
when I look like I've got a friend who her and her husband are divorced, and he got remarried, and his new wife is the most amazing stepmom to these kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's putting the good of the kids forefront. And so her and my friend have become friends because they're putting the kids first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, no, I've never sat them down and said, here, take this EQ test and, assessment, let's see where you're at. But that screams high emotional intelligence because they have learned how to put aside the things that they don't agree on and to make the kids the focus of the decisions that they make. And,
Right.
they don't have time or energy to be pushing buttons and poking and prodding and seeing how upset they
Yeah.
can make the other party because that affects the kids.
Right. Right.
And so that's a very high emotional awareness and
Mm-hmm.
emotional intelligence. And I've got another friend in their divorce. One party is being extremely negative and has been dragging it through for years. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that party's in contempt of court right now for not following what the judge has asked,
Yeah.
and still is not wanting to let things, every chance that person gets to make the process take longer and to think they're hurting the other party, they're continuing to do. Now that's very low emotional intelligence.
It is. It is.
I mean, there's other words for it as well, but usually that kind of person has
Yep.
zero emotional intelligence. And
Right.
it's because
Right.
they don't care.
Yeah.
And so what's important about emotional intelligence and how it's used is, while we shouldn't put ourselves last all the time, we also have to remember that we don't always get to be first. And that there is a balance we need to have when we are amongst our fellow human beings. And we need to look at each thing as an individual situation and what needs to happen here and what's the best way to make that happen and communicate those happenings. I mean, I think about, my son spent probably, I don't know, until he was like 4. We probably spent some, especially in the winter, we probably spent almost every weekend in the emergency room.
Mm.
He got croup.
Yep.
And he's 45. So that was back in when, remember the blanket sleeper onesies, and they were fire resistant. So,
Oh yeah. 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 Yeah.
and unfortunately, that was, when kids got sick and got a fever, that they couldn't, their bodies couldn't breathe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I remember as he got older, it's like, we don't see croup as much because they don't make those anymore.
Yeah.
But we were constantly spending the weekend at the ER and then trying to figure out, get him home Monday. I've been up all night for 2 nights, and
Right. Right.
he
Right.
couldn't get just one treatment. We usually end up going back.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to go to work, and my husband would go to work, and we'd have to find someone to watch him because he was sick and had a fever and couldn't go to daycare. And when I look at how it was how we were responded to then to how probably most places would do now, the emotional intelligence was very low.
Mhm. Mhm.
All they cared about just, I don't care if you fall asleep on the job, you have to come in. If
Right,
it
right.
if it snowed and school was closed, I was still expected to go in and do data entry.
Yeah,
You know, that stuff's gonna wait.
yeah, yeah.
And how am I don't want him in the car to drive across town to take him to somebody that's gonna watch him so I can drive farther across town to go to work. His school is half a block down the street, and if they
Right,
don't think it's safe for him to go to school, how is it safe for me to take him?
right, right.
And
And
this was you could work remotely back then. We didn't have laptops. We couldn't do that stuff at home.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
And I remember how angry I was, especially because my boss, she was single. She didn't have kids, but she had a dog. And I remember the day she called in sick to work and couldn't do a meeting because her dog was sick and was at the vet. And I thought, oh, so you can call in sick to take your dog to the vet, but I can't be calling sick to take my son to the
Right,
hospital. And I
right,
worked in a hospital. Now, when I look back, that was a very narrow mind for me
right. Hmm.
as well. I can't adjust how they were thinking, but that was very narrow minded of me because I also know what it's like. Dogs are family. At least
Yeah.
they were for me. And that dog was everything to her.
Hmm. Hmm.
But we didn't really recognize that in the 80s.
Right, right.
And so I was pretty mean and nasty. And then when she came back in, I didn't buy, I thought, well, I don't want to hear about her dog. So if
Yeah.
she started talking about her dog, I would find something else to do. and, and that's not okay.
Yeah, right,
You
right.
know,
It's not.
it's not okay. We need to be more cognizant of other people's feelings. Now, when other people's feelings might lead them to actions that can cause harm, that's different. But I think we need to remember that we're all human beings
Hmm.
doing the best we can with what we have at any given moment in time.
Right. I agree. I agree.
And when we look at things coming up with the holidays, if you've got those blended families or families that are splitting apart, but you still have to find ways to make the holidays work, it's so much more pleasant if you can just be a bigger person and
Right.
try not to have all that hassle because depending on whose house you're at, you know, it never ends up being just between two or three people. It ends up bringing in whoever's there
Right.
because
Right.
that stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. And it
No, it
doesn't
doesn't. It doesn't.
usually blows up right at the table, right?
Yeah. 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 It does. It does. So, what can folks do? I mean, uh, you're in the middle of a program right now, correct?
Yes, yes, I am. And it's called the support equation. And it's how using what we learned from emotional intelligence and from the DISC profiles and how to be a better steward. That program's kind of geared at how you support others without. I was on a call yesterday with Zelda White, and I love the way she put it. She said, "To care but not carry,"
Yeah.
and
That's cool. Yeah.
I always I use it as be able to help somebody and be supportive to them without taking on their burden. But I love how she said to care but not carry. And so when we're in these places where maybe we're around people we don't want to be around, or maybe we're around people we haven't seen in a long time and it's overwhelming, you know, I know for when growing up, Thanksgiving and the holidays with my mom's family was overwhelming because there was 9 kids
Yeah.
and all but 2 of them had children. So, everybody would come and that was a lot of people at my grandma's tiny house. And it could be very overwhelming when you even when it's joyful, it can still be very overwhelming. And it's like learning when to, if someone's baby is getting tired and crying and they haven't had a chance to eat, somebody else step in and go play with the baby or take care of the baby so mom and dad can have their part of the meal. We used to do the kids table and the adult table, and then after a
Yep.
while we found it was more fun, and the kids thought it was more fun if the kids table was in the family room. They turned the TV on and they watched Charlie Brown Thanksgiving or whatever, and they could have their Thanksgiving and it didn't interrupt the adults' Thanksgiving, and everybody got to do what they wanted to do and interact.
Yeah.
So it's just bringing that humanity to the forefront and remembering that we should be there for each other and not against each other.
Right.
And
Right.
that goes whether it's holiday celebrations, whether, um, I'm going to be flying the day before Thanksgiving. And I'm going to hope at least we've caught up from the shutdown. But I'm just fully prepared that I will get there when I get there.
Yep. Yep.
And, and if something happens, it is not the people at the gate's fault.
Right. Right.
They're all just trying to work and get through the day. So
Yep.
sometimes we just have to step outside ourselves. And it starts with awareness,
Yeah.
learning how to recognize the signals and the signs, not just in ourselves, but in others as well, and how we can mitigate what's happening. And then there's empathy. And the biggest thing with empathy, I think, is to avoid things like, I know exactly how you feel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or I've been through that too, because even if you have,
Yep.
I am not the only woman who has lost her spouse.
Right. Right.
But for me to go in and know how every other widow feels that's not empathy. That's making me the center.
Yep. Yep.
And that's not what I want to do. And then after empathy, we will talk about action, how to put everything into action, because being aware and understanding is one thing. And then what are the actions that we take to help the others and to let others know that we see them, we feel them, we validate where they're at, and what can we do to help them move the next steps. And that could be, mom overwhelmed in the kitchen trying to pull Thanksgiving dinner together, and there's 5 dogs and 20 kids and and grandkids all in the kitchen. Because I don't care how big your living room is and your dining room is. The kitchen is where everybody hangs out while meals are being cooked. Everybody's tasting the turkey, tasting the stuffing.
Yeah, you didn't do that with my grandmother.
Well,
Nope.
with my grandmother, it wasn't so much we were in tasting, we were all helping. Luckily, my grandmother's kitchen was very large, and with all those people, somebody was setting the table, somebody, everybody had a job.
Yeah.
And you did your job. And you didn't step away from your job unless she asked you to step away from your job.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think part of my childhood and going to my grandmother's, for the holidays and stuff, my grandmother and grandfather's for the holidays, Thanksgiving was always probably the biggest. I remember a lot of Christmases we had at our place, and which I don't understand because my mom had two brothers, and my dad had a sister, and but my uncle's family was pretty big, so it was just really kind of weird, But you didn't mess with mom. I mean, you flat didn't. She She ruled the roost at her place. That was for sure.
Well, and even at our house, mom did the cooking.
Hmm.
Dad cut the turkey.
Hmm.
And on Christmas Eve, again, mom did the cooking, and we had the oyster stew and all that fun stuff. But I never ate oyster stew growing up. I always thought that sounded so awful. But now, in fact, I like to do non-traditional Thanksgiving sometimes.
Yeah.
After our son grew up and moved out, and it was just me and Jeff, we would. Oh, one year I made Chinese.
Yeah.
And one year we did Italian. We barbecued. It wasn't about the turkey. It was about the gathering.
The gathering. Yeah. And when we gather like that, we have to remember that people are going through things, and everybody remembers something different about Thanksgiving, and there's triggers, there's things that come up. And if we are not paying attention to what we're saying and how we're acting and reacting, we can trigger somebody pretty easily.
Most definitely. And so, the next session is on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still room if people want to enroll.
Okay. Do you have a link you can drop in there real quick?
Yeah, I'm grabbing it right now.
Okay. So Monday at 7:00 Eastern, right?
7:00 Eastern time, and these are recorded, mm-hmm. And so even if you haven't joined us before, you can still join in, and because you'll have. You'll have
You have access to the whole program.
You'll have access to the whole program. Sorry, I was without putting my reading glasses on. I wasn't sure where to put that. So I should just put the reading glasses on, right?
Yeah.
So you can join in. The cost is only $87, and you'll get everything from before. You'll get to be part of the community as well and share information back and forth. And we're there to support each other through the journey.
Yes.
And then after we talk about action, then we pull it all in together to show how it all works together.
Yes. Yeah.
And, you get the assessment as part of the course, but even if you've never taken an assessment, these skills, I can teach you how to use them.
Right.
It's so important to remember, even when it's not holiday time, we never know what someone else is going through, even if we know them really well.
Right.
People only share what they feel safe sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like today, I was telling you before we started recording, I moved my homeowner's insurance, and I've been having difficulty getting a check that I can actually deposit because my husband was still on the homeowner's insurance, even though he's been gone. And so check number 2 arrived yesterday, and it was it was wrong again. And I'm on the phone with somebody.
Tell him what it said.
In the estate of me, which after calling the bank we can work with, but it was supposed to come to me in the estate of Jeff.
Right.
And so then it came to the estate of me, and the first thing I thought is there something I need to know?
Right.
Like, am I not long for this world? Should I be concerned?
Yep.
Should I be worried about getting in the car and driving to the bank? Am I not going to make it? Am I dead and already in hell? But the conversation with them was so ridiculous.
Right.
And I had to keep pulling in my emotional intelligence going, I'm sure they just don't know how to handle what's going on.
Right.
But they lied to me 5 times on that phone call.
Yeah.
and then in an email to me afterwards.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
and
can,
that just never sets well. Just never sets
no,
well.
and for me, you can call me names, you can do a lot of things to me,
Yep.
but don't lie to me. I'm not
Right.
stupid.
Right. 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 Right.
And to me, when you lie to someone, you are degrading them.
Yes. Yep.
You're
Yep.
degrading yourself, but you're degrading the person you're talking to.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
And so I really had to,
had, had to rein it in, didn't you?
I had to have a come to Jesus meeting with myself.
Yep. There you go. There you go. Well,
because I was very polite to her on the phone, but I did tell her, I said, I know this is not your fault. I said, but you need to understand that this is the third time I'm talking to you about this check.
yeah.
And they wouldn't expedite, if they have to send another one, it's going to come while I'm out of town.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I'm the one paying the penalty.
Right.
It's like, and I don't know if they are just so big and everything is such a process, they don't have the ability to make any changes to how it works,
Yeah.
or if
That-
it's their way of punishing me for changing companies.
right. Yeah. You feel like that though, don't you?
You feel like that, and to be honest, I doubt that that's now
Right.
with the original agent office that I talked to. I think the person I talked to was upset that I was, they're losing the
Maybe.
business.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the big office, I'm a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. That's
And
right.
it's a lot of work for them to have to stop checks and issue another
Right.
check.
Right.
So
Right.
I just had to remind myself that that's not what's going on.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, folks, if this has been any value to you, if you would just like and share, subscribe to our channels. This should be out on YouTube, on Linda's YouTube channel, and we'll share it to our other social media venues. But if this has been of benefit to you, please comment, let us know, like and follow. And Linda, this has been kind of fun today, and
It's been interesting. And if you've got any situations coming up that you want to run by us, you can put that in the comments, make it as confidential as you need to. And if you really don't want to share it with anybody else, you can email me at Linda@lovinglifesjourney.com, or you can email balancingact2024@gmail.com, and we're happy to get with you and walk you through how emotional intelligence could help you in that situation. Be happy to do that.
so we'll see you next go round. Thanks for being with us today. Linda, have a great day.
You too.